NNF After Dark is brought to you by Sandpiper Vacations. For all of your vacation planning needs, visit www.sandpipervacations.com. Tell them that the No New Friends podcast sent you.
Welcome to NNF After Dark. Chris is going to take you through the highlights of the previous episode and maybe even say some bad words, plus celebrity interviews and much, much more. And now, here he is, the scumbag reselling hoarder himself, Chris Yob.
Welcome back to another weekly installment. Like I said, weekly installment there, Scott. I'm pretty proud of the weekly installment.
Yeah,
Really,
it's a big word.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, pretty sophisticated way to start off a podcast. Let me start over. Welcome to another weekly installment of No New Friends After Dark. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, because I'm going to say I'm one of your hosts.
Please don't.
Scott loves it when I say
it drives me nuts. Please don't do that.
I'm one of your journers through this journey of life.
One of your guides through this journey of life.
I'm one of these guides to the journey of life. We are the podcast that digs through the many layers of the parfait of life. When we're done digging through that parfait of life, we lick that yogurt off our lips. We swallow the granola.
Wow, when Nick hears this episode,
I know. I paused for dramatic effect so that when Nick sees this, I know he's going to have to contain himself. Now, look, you're hearing my voice. You're hearing Scott's voice. Unfortunately, Nick is no longer with us this week. He will be back next week.
Just this week. He's
just this week.
Yeah, he's out of town. He's in my town, so he's not out of town.
Yeah,
he's
just true.
Out of his town.
I thought he died because Scott texted me, said Nick is dead to me. And I said, what do you mean dead to you? Yeah, because he's missing the podcast and he's dead to me. Oh, man, that's a little dramatic. But yeah, so Nick will be back next week, God willing. I was going to say we'll let you know if he doesn't make it back on the plane. But like you'll like if you watch the news, you'll hear.
Wow.
You don't have to say anything.
Holy crap.
Seriously, I never understood that whole like, oh, text me when you land. Like, you'd know.
Yeah, but right? Okay. But I'm one of those people, text me when you land, text me when you get to where you're going and all that, because it may be hours before it hits the news. And, just like September 11th, we all knew that the towers had fallen, but to get that text, hey, I'm okay, I'm out, was probably...
Yeah, a little different terrorist attack versus a routine flight, Scott. A little different.
Well, but your point is, if a routine flight does not make it to its destination, everybody's going to know.
Yeah,
but some people do survive plane crashes.
That is true. So, I guess what we should say is, if you crash and you're okay, text me. That's a more logical way to put it.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, segueing from that to what we're talking about this week.
Not the direction that we were going to go, but here we are.
Perfect segue. Well, actually, it's not the direction you'd go in a plane crash either, Scott. So there's a segue. But now, no, I can't even joke about that because you brought up 9/11 for some reason, and now people are going to think I'm joking about 9/11.
Yeah, how insensitive. I've got a good idea. When we're talking about text when you land or text, how about if you wreck your car, send a picture without context? That's always a good idea.
Yeah, I got one of those ones. Funny to say that. I did get that. That was the weirdest thing to ever wake up to, and I think we did talk about that on the podcast. Is that Ryan from Jersey Man versus Florida Man? I texted him the day before, hey, have a safe trip. He was going to Florida, driving to Florida the next day, and I wake up to no context, but just a picture of his wrecked vehicle
and 3,000 text messages.
Yeah, it was that was bizarre. Didn't make the news, so I guess you do have. If you live in the sticks, you do have a text at home safe because it will not make the news. Anyway, I really wanted to talk about something tonight that isn't really a topic. It's more of just a conversation that the two of us are going to have. I know that this is I don't want to say topic. It's not really a topic, but this subject means a lot to you. It means a lot to me, but in very, very different ways. And you brought this up to me today, and the other day I heard you talking about it too. I thought it was a great idea, especially because of what's been going on in my life, what's been going on in your life for years with other people. And we're gonna have a conversation really just between you and I about anxiety. And because I am a dealer of anxiety, an anxiety card holder. What do I say?
Yeah, I mean, you're someone who lives with anxiety, suffers from anxiety.
Yes.
And then borderline depression. I mean,
yeah. I mean, because it's a tight line between anxiety and depression. It can go, if you teeter too much to one side, it definitely tips over to that spectrum. And then you don't know what anxiety or depression is for the most part.
No, I know what it is. I know it exists, but I don't understand it. And I will probably never understand it. I respect it, and I know that it's a real thing that people go through, but I don't know what it's like. And, if I could take lead on this conversation for a minute.
Of course.
I get depressed about things, but it's a quick snapback. Right. I get anxious about things, but it's not a crippling type thing. Yeah. Okay. So like for a brief moment, maybe I can understand it, but it's where I have a hard time understanding is, okay, so peeling back the curtain, if you don't mind, I get a text from you earlier in the week. Yeah. I may have to take time away from the podcast. I tripped over my dog, re-ruptured the Achilles, not in a good place. So immediately my heart sank for you because I know what that does to you. But then it spawned a lot of confusion, not confusion, because I get it. I get what stuff like that can do to you, but I don't understand it, having never gone through that firsthand. If something bad happens to me, I'm a wreck for 24 hours, but then the next day I'm like, okay, this is my new normal. And how do I move forward with that? And missing, this is going to sound terrible, and we'll circle back around to this in the main point of the conversation, but missing an episode of a pod, like this is what I look forward to every single week. This is the highlight of my week is getting together with you guys, getting together with our Patreon members, doing this podcast. So I cannot fathom a reason to miss an episode for me. To miss an episode unless it's I'm out of day, unless it's physically impossible for me to record. So that aside, I don't the things that I have trouble understanding is one, how any situation can take someone to that place. Okay. Right. But again, I say it all the time. I understand that I will never understand. And that's okay. As long as I respect that other people go through this, and it's not my place to judge. It's not my place to say, well, this is what you should do, or this is how you should handle this, because I don't know.
Right. Sure.
What I really struggled with and what I had a really, really difficult time with this week, obviously losing you for any amount of time for just the podcast alone, obviously your health, your mental health is the most important thing to me. And that's why I texted you immediately, take as much time as you need. Yeah, and I don't typically, if someone misses an episode, I usually leave some space between when I respond.
Yes. Yeah.
But I get it. So it's take as much time as you need. But inside, it was devastating to me. It was a very, very difficult.
Right.
That's as close as I can get to a depression, if you will.
Right.
Where it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because obviously this podcast is very important to me. But okay.
Right.
So, I don't understand how anybody can get to that level where it's like, okay, now I can't function through my normal routines because I'm this upset, or I'm this in a dark place. And that's just something I'm never going to understand. But even worse, I didn't know how to act. You know, it's like it's like when you have someone loses their parent or loses their spouse or it's almost an avoidance where I don't talk to them because I don't know what to say. I don't know how to act. And it was the same thing. It's how do I be there for you as a friend without making it seem like I'm just checking on you to see if you're going to be here on Wednesday, because that was never my intention.
No.
Checking in with you every single morning was never my intention I was expecting you to be out for at least a month. Mm-hmm. But also on the flip side, I was like, okay, this is a really bad day. I think as the days progress, I think maybe he'll come out of it a little bit. But then again, that's my ignorance of not living in your shoes or your air boot. Yeah. You know, I don't, you know, I don't know. But I guess it's, and I honestly, I almost reached out to Emily, because I was going to ask her, hey, I don't know what to say right now. And I don't know if me texting him every morning is just a constant reminder, like, hey, I'm in this fucked up situation. Or if he's I don't know. And everybody's different. So like you can answer one way.
Yeah, right. Sure.
But that's not a blanket statement for everybody who suffers from mental health illnesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. I kind of take it away, kind of take me through your stuff this week.
Well, first of all, you sell yourself short by saying you don't know what to say or what to do, because you texted me in the morning saying, hey, checking in. How are you doing? Other people, there's been, I hate to call them Patreon members because they're friends of mine, but members of our community reaching out to us. Ryan, I'm gonna forget a bunch of names, but like people just text me like, "Hey, good luck today. Thinking about you, sending good vibes your way." All that helped. All that helped for sure. Just knowing that people are concerned about my well-being, it reminds you of how important your own life is, if that makes sense. And taking it back to the very beginning, just when it happened, I was devastated, because you say you can't understand how you have a bad day or something bad happens. You wake up, you're like, oh, this is the new normal, right? Well, I was having my best day recovery wise, and then to go from weeks and weeks of suffering, the surgery, laying on a couch for 2 weeks with my leg elevated, not being able to leave unless I have to go to the bathroom, 24 hours a day, on so many different painkillers and antibiotics and this and that, having to remember to take all these things, going from that to then finally being able to be a little mobile on the knee scooter and the crutches, and then getting into a walking boot. It being an excruciating pain, and when I first get the walking boot, which was super discouraging, and every day it got a little better. That Saturday was the best day I felt. And then for me to feel like, oh my gosh, I just ruined everything in an instant. I'm back to square one. All the progress I made was taken from me. And not only that, but like I had mentioned on the podcast, my best friend, who was the best man at my wedding, he is like a brother to me. His wedding was within 10 days when we were recording this, and I thought I was going to have to miss that, because I thought I was going to have emergency surgery to get this fixed. I mean, falling on a surgically repaired anything just makes my blood run cold. And I did that. And it was scary having some of my incision come back open. It was devastating. I was gutted. And so I texted you because I didn't know how I'd do anything. I don't know how I was going to smile or be happy or laugh, knowing that I was going to have to go through all that again. And and then like I said, missing my friend's wedding was the worst thing ever. Like missing that huge life event was devastating to me. And that's why I texted you and said I'm gonna have to take some time off, because I just did not know how I was going to come on and pretend to be happy, because I wasn't happy. And you know me more than anyone else. I love to joke about dark things. I love to joke about, but this was just too much for me. And I told Emily, I said I texted Scott, I want to take some time away from the podcast, because I'm in a really bad place right now. And she told me that was a bad idea. and she said that the podcast helps you. And she actually opened up to me and said she texted you privately, thanking you. I think this was when I was going through my recovery.
Yes.
Saying like, thank you for being there, and thank you for, basically just, giving me this opportunity to make people laugh and to really cheer myself up on a weekly basis if I'm having a bad week, even when I don't want to do this podcast, because I just don't want to do anything. I just want to go to bed. I come on, I do it, and I go to bed happy.
Yeah. Mental health or not, there's nights that I don't want to do it for whatever reason. And
sure. Yeah.
So it's not I understand that.
You mentioned that, because I'm trying to touch on all the bases that
I know I threw a lot at you.
Yeah. So remind me if I'm
a terrible co-host.
You say you feel depressed and you feel anxious about things, but that's totally different than depression and anxiety.
I agree.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you might, I don't know, what's something you're afraid of? Heights? Like
our numbers bottoming out to 0.
Okay, perfect. So take that feeling, and when you're looking at numbers, when you're thinking about it, and then imagine you having that feeling 24/7, and sometimes with no explanation. Sometimes you just wake up and like, why do I feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
And you just feel that way for no reason. Imagine you losing a loved one or something, a pet, a relative, and that sadness that you feel, and the feeling like, oh my gosh, I just want to sleep. But imagine that 24/7 for no reason sometimes.
So
and that's depression.
Okay, so when you or anybody, well, we can only talk about you because everybody's story is different. So are you not able to look at other things, in your mind? So if I get upset or depressed about something that I'm going to be depressed about for a while, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I can always look at, but I have this, or but this, but like I can always find, and I'm an extremely optimistic person. So this is not speaking for everybody, but I can always look at, well, I have this. And and I think that for someone who doesn't suffer from mental health illnesses, that is one of the hardest things to understand is when you see someone, a celebrity or someone who's extremely attractive, has a great family, and like, I don't understand. You're gorgeous. Everybody loves you. You've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. How could you be feeling this? That's something before I understood mental health. And before I understood mental health the way that I do now, that was my first question, is I don't understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now I can't really speak on depression as much as I can anxiety, because I've never been depressed for a very long period of time. There's one time in my life that I was ever depressed for a long period of time, but it was really not depression centered. It was anxiety centered, and the anxiety caused my depression. Because of the constant state of anxiousness. So I'm an optimist. I look at the glass half full, but when your anxiety takes over, you can't. You have an inability to be able to distract yourself from anything. Anxiety is just like this pit in your stomach. It's kind of like if you have a headache or you have a stomach ache, you can try to distract yourself all you want from that headache or stomach ache, but it's still there.
Right.
Unless you take medicine for it, or unless you,
that's a great analogy. And that's a great analogy for people who don't suffer from mental health illnesses to kind of understand, because, Ryan and Chad just said, it's way easy to just be like, snap out of it. And like, I can snap out of it for the most part on certain things. But not everybody can. But that's super, because mental health is just as important and just as real as physical health.
Well, what people need to realize is that mental disorders like anxiety, depression are mental disorders. They're diseases. Like it's not something that my brain does not produce the amount of serotonin that it should produce, and that's what leads to my anxiety. So the medicine that I'm on regulates that and makes me produce more serotonin. need the medicine to feel normal. Just like if somebody with cancer needed chemotherapy, or if somebody with diabetes needs insulin, like it's a disease, it's a disorder, and it's something that like you can't help.
Yeah, I had a therapist once say, if you go to an eye doctor and they say you need glasses, you get glasses. So I'm a therapist, and I'm saying you need to be on medication. It's the same thing.
There's no way around it. Because okay, say you go to an eye doctor and they tell you need glasses, and you say, "Oh no, I'm not going to." Then you start squinting to see things, and you get a headache. Then that you not getting the glasses and you trying to do something else is now causing another issue. So like with anxiety, that's exactly what happens with me. I my anxiety wasn't treated for so long. So what did it lead to? It led to depression. It led to stomach issues. It led to acid reflux, like stuff that I didn't even realize it was causing all these years. I was on Prilosec in high school because of acid reflux, and I just thought it was acid reflux. I thought I didn't know it was. I thought it was my diet. It was anxiety. I don't have acid reflux anymore. Well, that's because I also drink a bottle of Pepto a day. but seriously, like it was my anxiety causing that the whole time. So, and you say, like, you look at people like, oh, they have this, they have that. How could they be upset? It's a good point. Like, you have all the money in the world. You have all the, the beauty in the world. But in my condition, especially that I'm in right now with my injury, I could have all the money in the world. I could have all the material possessions of the world, but I can't walk.
Right.
And taking walking away from me was devastating. I am driving. It's my right foot. I can't drive. Right. I need to depend on somebody. Emily is a teacher. She went back to work. So now that was the other thing. I get hurt. Emily was off in the summer. She was here all the time. No, like I can. My mom will be over. My sister will be over. But I said this all the time. I said I would apologize, and they'd get mad at me. But I said, I'm sorry. I feel like a burden to you guys, and that feeling too sucked. And they don't feel that way, but I feel that way. Mm-hmm. And talking about what happened with the other day, like I was like, do you want to talk about it? I said, no, I don't want to talk about it. This is my reality, and I don't want to continue to talk about it. I want to watch this show we're watching. I want to eat dinner. I don't want to talk about me re-rupturing my tendon and me being depressed, because it's not going to fix anything. Mm-hmm. So talking about things don't even work. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you sell yourself short with, oh, I don't know if me checking on you every morning, it was good. That was perfect for me. Just knowing that somebody cared and someone was reaching out helped. It was nice. It was. I even said to my mom this morning on the way to the appointment, such and such reached out. This person reached out. That person reached out. Every single text message, it helped my day for sure. And it's a crazy thing. Depression, anxiety, it's a crazy, crazy thing. And that's why I try to speak about it, because I do understand it to an extent, because I know there's people suffering worse than me. But since I do understand it, I like my sister suffers from anxiety. And whenever she has like a panic attack or something, I'm the first person she calls, because I can tell you, hey, I know you feel like you're dying right now. I know you have the shortness of breath, you're shaking. And I said, and you're going to feel like shit for the next half hour, 45 minutes. But you worrying about how you feel right now is going to prolong that. So if you stop worrying about that and just tell yourself this is normal, you will feel better quicker. And that's my whole thing is when I had really bad bouts of anxiety, that the one thing I was able to make me feel a little bit better was doing my research and just realizing this is normal. Like no one's ever died from a panic attack. That's what my friend told me when I had a panic attack at his house the one time, that no one's ever died from a panic attack. And that helped me a lot, because you need these facts.
Yeah.
A lot of anxiety is overthinking.
Did I text you or somebody else? You survive 100% of your bad days. Was that you that I texted? I don't know that?
I'm not sure if it was me or not. I'm not sure.
Maybe I texted it and then I erased it. I don't know.
But that's a good point. And my another one of my friends were saying that like this is horrible. You can't sugarcoat this. Like, this is terrible. But you will come out from this, and you'll come out better from it. And hearing that, it's like I try to tell myself that, but it's like I was saying to Emily, because Emily was like, oh, you can look forward to, it's only going to push you a month back and this and that, and you will be better. And it's like, all I feel like I can look forward to now is just suffering. Like, that's all I have to look forward to now is just suffering. Mentally, because I'm missing my friend's wedding. Physically, because I have to get surgery again. It just laying in one spot is so mentally tolling. Mm-hmm. It's like COVID, but you can't leave your couch.
Right.
It was like the lockdown where everyone was depressed because they couldn't leave their house, but I can't leave my couch because I could, re-rupture my Achilles tendon.
Yeah. It's so, for me, because I always try to put myself in other people's shoes, and again, when we're talking about mental health, that like I can only maybe put the right shoe on. Like I can't put both shoes on because I just don't.
Right.
I don't fully understand that that disconnect or the imbalance or whatever it is. So like for me, it's like, okay, I had a setback. I said, but for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to get through it. And then it's going to be better at the end. Yeah. So I can see that light at the end of the tunnel. I can see where I can see tomorrow. I can see the future. And I guess that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Because any situation that I'm in, it's to me, it's always, this is just temporary. This is just a small chunk of my life that at some point I'm going to be able to go back and look and laugh at, or I'm going to be able to, learn from it, whatever, but it's a small chunk, but I can see that it's only a small chunk right now. Yeah. And I think that's a huge difference.
Big picture, I think it's easy to look at and think, yeah, it's a small chunk of my life. That's the same words Emily uses. This is a very small chunk of your life and things will get better. But, put yourself in my shoes for a second. Imagine one day with the schedule that you have, Scott, needing to go to work and maybe going to the mall, maybe going to your 7-Eleven every day. Imagine now you just broke your right ankle and you're in a cast and you need surgery on it. And you're on the couch for 2 weeks. You have to take off of work. You're helpless. Now people have to come over and help you because you can't even move. Then after those 2 weeks are done where you can't move, you still can't really do anything because you can't leave your house. You can't drive. You can't walk. You can no longer walk. Mm-hmm. And then after weeks of suffering from all that, you get a little walking boot. You get a little bit of that freedom back, right? You get that taste of freedom again. It's the best feeling in the world. A week and a half goes by, and then that freedom's taken from you again. It's just like the roller coaster of emotions. I mean, it's crazy not being able to walk. Mm-hmm. Like it is crazy having to use crutches or a freaking knee scooter. I didn't talk about this on the podcast. I bought a peg leg today. I bought this thing that's like a crutch that goes on your knee because I know I'll be in this cast for 3 weeks. Thinking maybe I could just walk around the house a little bit, simulate walking.
Right.
But I have not used my calf muscle for weeks, months. Oh, it's gonna be going on months, and it's horrible.
Yeah,
the freedom of just being able to leave my house and go to Target by my own. I can't even do that. I can't do any of that.
I get that. I completely get that, and I especially get it for you. I don't get it for me because I am not a very independent person, and to me, the thought of being waited on. It does not bother me at all.
I get that,
but we're different. We're different people, and
well, being waited on and having to be waited on, completely different. Is it nice? Is it nice to be on the couch and getting served dinner? Sure, but when it's like, hey, can you get my pain medicine or something? Like it's like things that I could. It's tough.
I will. I think I can share kind of an example. And maybe we can kind of make those connections.
Okay.
So let's do that after the break.
Sounds good. We'll be right back. There are 3 things that I hate in life: taxes, nausea, and booking vacations. The first 2 I'm stuck with, but for the third, I use Sandpiper Vacations. Sandpiper Vacations is a small business that is LGBTQ+ owned and operated with travel advisors all over the country. Whether it's a cruise, a trip to a theme park, or an all-inclusive resort, Sandpiper has you covered. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it's free. Why book a vacation when you can have someone else do it for you? That's like choosing to take the stairs in a building that has an elevator. Leave the headaches of booking a vacation to someone else. Get your quote today at www.sandpipervacations.com and tell them that the No New Friends podcast sent you.
Psst. Hey, you. You want to join a cult? Well, this might be your lucky day. For just $2 a month and a simple blood oath, you can join our clubhouse and become a friend with benefits. In addition to the amazing feeling of donating to the poor, you will have access to Patreon-exclusive content, live shows, and maybe even a behind-the-scenes look at my secret stash. To get started, head on over to NoNewFriendsPodcast.com and hit Join Our Clubhouse. Can't wait to see you at the initiation ceremony. Oh, and in the chat during our live shows, of course.
Hope you really enjoyed those commercials. Like I always say, we work very hard. Scott worked very hard on them. I don't know, maybe I was in one of them.
Well, you did the Sandpiper one, so that one's all you. Yep. And then the other one's me.
Here. So please compliment us on them, and if you didn't hear them, hit that rewind button and listen to them. I'll wait. All right, so Scott, you were going to bring up a point that we could talk about.
Yeah. So. There's a lot about my past that I haven't shared, bits and pieces here and there, but not so much on our show. Now, if you listened to the Father's Day episode of Keeping the Towel with Aunt Boogie that I appeared on, I revealed a lot there, but we make jokes about how live in this mansion and my wife is rich, and all of that is true. But it wasn't always like that at all.
Right.
Excuse me. Sorry. And I remember, and this is going to be like a real weak comparison, but it's the only thing that I can kind of compare. Finances for me were never good. My credit was shit. My finances were shit. And, I was in not the best relationships. And I remember ending my relationship with Abby's mom, and this was the first of 3 times, sorry. And my mom and my sister were like, well, why don't you come up to New York? My mom was going up to New York. Like, why don't you come up to New York? And I'm like, I'm broke. I'm like beyond broke. I have negative $35 in my account. And I don't get paid for another 4 days. Like when people say that they're broke and it's just, they don't have money to spend. Right. I literally had nothing. If you go to Walgreens, you could write a check for $25. Oh, Chris, a check is something that we used to use as a form of non-cash currency.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. So
it's like cryptocurrency?
No, it was connected to your bank account, but so you could go to Walgreens and you could write a check for $25 more than what your bill was. So we had it timed out. We knew when Walgreens deposited their checks. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So we'd buy groceries. Okay. And then we'd pay for it with a check and we'd write it for $25 more so that we had enough for gas and cigarettes to get us through the next couple days. So this was my life for several years. I mean, it was not great, but I this New York trip, because they wanted me to go on it because I, had my heart broken and I was like, well, I don't have any money. And they're like, well, we'll help you out. They didn't realize that when I said I didn't have any money, I did not have any money.
Right.
So, we're going to the Statue of Liberty. I'm like, hey, I need you guys to pay. We're doing the airline ticket, everything. So like, I can kind of get like, that was very difficult. I guess like that for me is equivalent to someone having to come over to help take care of me walking.
You feel like a
that.
burden. Yeah. You feel like a burden.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that was for several years where I felt like a burden. I felt like the black sheep, if you will, because a lot of yours was not self-inflicted, whereas like some of this for me was self-inflicted based on the decisions that I had made. But again, so that's the only comparison I can make. But again, I knew that I would wake up every day. Well, I assumed I'd wake up every day, and I had things to look forward to and things that I knew were positives in my life. And so it was a dark time, but like, I guess the dark for me is more like dusk or maybe dawn, because dawn is probably a better instead of the middle of the night.
Yeah. And that was that's a good way to look at it. I totally understand what you're saying. And, when I first got this injury, I wasn't really depressed about it. I was like, I will get better. I will have the surgery. I will get better. But going through it was very hard. And then when it tore again and thinking that I was going to have to do that, I didn't feel like there was anything good coming. I feel like I was in this endless cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it really goes back to just me potentially missing out on my best friend's wedding, not being able to be there.
And that's a big part of it. I completely get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's really what made me the most upset. Like when I went to the doctors today and he said, we're going to put you in a cast for 3 weeks and we'll check it out in 3 weeks and it should heal. If it doesn't heal, we can always go in and operate. I wasn't even worried because like, you know what, 3 weeks from now, the wedding will be over. And if I need surgery, I need surgery. But now I do not need to have that difficult phone call. Be like, hey man, I'm not going to be able to make it to your wedding.
Right.
Like that's just like, that was everything, for me when that happened. That was the first thing I thought of. So, but just going back to what you said about just being a burden, and it's like that on top of everything. So it was just a bunch of these little things adding up, over time. I hate asking people for help. I try to be independent, and me trying to be a little bit more independent, hopping to my seat, as small as it was, I trip and fall, freak accident. But it's like, you get that freedom and you're like, okay, I don't need to ask this person for that. I don't need to ask them to help me to my seat. I don't need to. And then something like that happens. It's just like, now I'm back to square one. And now I'm back to being a bigger burden than I was, 5 minutes ago. Horrible, horrible feeling. That being said, that's a little bit of my anxiety, overthinking things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not an orthopedic surgeon. I assumed I tore it. That was it. I need surgery again. And me overthinking led to the depression I was having. I go to the doctors today. And he's like, no, we're just going to put you in a cast. No surgery needed. Unless you're a professional athlete or a D1 athlete, you're not going to need surgery. And I'm like, well, far from that, sir. So it's like, and that's the thing is, overthinking leads to crazy things, like depression and like anxiety. And that's something that someone who, you can overthink all you want. You've been an overthinker, but overthinking with anxiety is like I can't even have a good description of what it is. It's like Superman's kryptonite. You have anxiety and you overthink. It's like everything's killing you and everything is, going to be your last meal it's just like, it's horrible. That's why if you are listening to this and you do suffer from anxiety, you should seek a therapist and you should seek a psychologist like I did. Psychiatrist
gives you the medicine. Psychologist is the one that talks to you.
Yeah, psychiatrist, the one that treats with medicine, because you are sick. You have a disease. You have a disorder. It is not something that deep breaths are going to help permanently. Deep breaths will help temporarily, but trust me, deep breaths will not, because then you hold your breath and you feel your heart pounding and it makes you worry more. Take it from me, the deep breaths do not work permanently. So,
and here's another thing that I struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
to Emily's point, and you know, I had information that you didn't have. You know, she had messaged me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her story to tell you that she had messaged me, not mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I know how important Wednesdays are to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is not from a selfish place. I promise you, this is from I think you being here would help you, but I couldn't tell you that.
No,
I couldn't tell you that.
But I get it. But I definitely get it. And I can assure you that if you did say something like that, I would not have taken offense. So we're very close, you and me. And you could never say anything that would offend me in regards to stuff like this. Because I know that you're coming from a good place. And I know that.
And I get that. But my firsthand experience with anxiety, depression, bipolar, and I know they're all different. Everybody's different, and every story is different, and every condition is different. Is the way that the therapist described it to me is when someone is in a depressive episode, they are incapable of certain rational and responsible thought. And that's not necessarily the same for everybody, but in the case that I dealt with firsthand, that was the case. Meaning, I will not be going to work because I don't care. I'm just going to lay in bed.
Right.
I don't care if you go to work because I don't care about the bills because I'm just going to lay in bed. So I didn't know if approaching you with the, hey, not for my benefit, but I think you should be here just because I know how much you enjoy Wednesdays, and I know how that helps kind of get you out of whatever space you're in.
Right.
I didn't know if that would be perceived as the Chris that's not going through any anxiety or depression at the moment, or the Chris that is, and how that would go. Because
I get that.
This was really my first exposure to what you're going through, and in real time.
Yeah.
You know, because like afterwards you'd be like, hey, I was in a really dark place. I really needed that. Well, I didn't know that you were in a dark place. I didn't know until after the fact. This was the first real time example that I had.
Yeah. It was an overreaction, but that's part of what depression is. Just overreactions about everything. And with my depression,
and Chris, I knew that, but I can't tell you that.
You can't. No, because that won't change.
That's like telling a woman to calm down. Like that's not going to go well.
Change anything. Because even when they know they need to calm down, they don't want to anymore because you just told them to.
Exactly.
And my depression, yes, irrational thinking to an extent is what depression is, but different for everyone. Yes, I would never not do something that would not benefit me. Like I always think, even when I'm super depressed, you can relate to this. When you're very drunk, right? Do you ever do something that you're like, future me is going to thank me for doing this? Like maybe drink an extra bottle of water, or maybe drink taking the
ibuprofen before I go to bed.
Yeah, see, and like you don't want to, but you're like, future me will thank me for this. Mm-hmm. Like you don't care in that moment. You're drunk. You don't care about taking ibuprofen in that moment. You don't have a worry in the world, but you know that future you, like rational thinking you, will thank you for that. And when I'm depressed, that's how I think with important things. With like I gotta pay, like you're saying, like, I have to go to work. I have to do this because someone's depending on me. And future me is gonna hate me if I burn this bridge. Future me is gonna hate me if I miss this payment. So the irrational thinking that I go through is more like laying around, not doing anything productive on a personal level. A lot of just like looking at the glass half empty and being a realist, but being a realist like in a really dark way instead of a really positive way. Like a realist meaning like, this is my situation right now, this sucks, instead of a realist thinking, this is my situation, but it won't be in 2 months from now.
It's interesting. You okay?
It's very... Yeah, no, I was reading a message. It's very interesting. It's very interesting that everybody has different ways of being affected by this. And that's why I think conversation like this is so important, is because my situation is not exactly like situations that you've been a part of.
Right.
Very different, matter of fact. And that's why, like, I encourage people at home, like the people that are closest to you, your family members, your friends that do suffer from anxiety and depression, have conversation like this so you can get a better understanding about them, so they do feel comfortable sending that text message. They do feel comfortable saying what they think they should say, but maybe they shouldn't say, and then they'll know what not to say or what to say. Like if you texted me the other day, Scott, and you're like, hey, you know, this sucks, but you know, you'll be fine one day, or like something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not stuff you want to hear. But you just initiate, hey, how are you today? I'll be straight up with you, and I think I have told you, like, hey, not great today, but this, you know, and
that's if I get a text message back. So
exactly, but like that like if you're not sure what or how to text someone dealing with anxiety or depression, just ask them how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I do have a friend that is suffering from anxiety pretty bad on a on and off again basis, and I'll just check in with them time to time, and it helps them just knowing that somebody is like checking in and, hey, you're not alone. I was there, and I came out on the other side of it. Like, it's possible. So yeah, it's just, these conversations are so important, and thank you for having this conversation with me, Scott, because I know it's not something that you really wanted to do per se for the podcast, but just for both, for the podcast and yourself. And I appreciate that.
Well, no, I appreciate your constant transparency, and your willingness to share, and your willingness to joke about it when it's appropriate.
Yeah.
And then, and you know, that's what I love about our group, is we have shared some things amongst the 4 of us or 5 of us that we don't talk about on air. Different things over the last 2 years, and because we know what's appropriate or when it's appropriate, you know. Yes. We waited a couple weeks before we talked about my cat, you know, and you know, it's a matter of when it's appropriate and all that, and I think we kind of know that now. Celebrity deaths, it's instantaneous. We're gonna, but
instant.
I just appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate when it's appropriate you making comedy out of it, because #content, you know how important that is to me. But
of course,
and I appreciate you being here. You are a big reason why Wednesdays are such a highlight for me and so many others. With what you do on Diz His, what you do here, what you do on After Dark, it's I love spending time with you. I love I love when we are able to have those phone calls, even though they're supposed to only be 5 minutes and they go on for 3 hours. But
always,
you know, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your friendship. And thank you for being open and with me about how to act during these times, because I don't know. And thank you for not judging me for not knowing how to act.
Everything you said, the feeling is completely mutual. I covet our friendship. I really do. And these Wednesday nights, I like, even when I'm super depressed and don't realize it, I'm glad that I come around, and I do realize how much I need these Wednesday nights. I need these couple hours talking with you. You know, I need these couple hours of just us entertaining people, making people laugh. And then nights like this, when we're making people just understand, not even me a little better, but people who are like me a little better. And then people who are like you a little better, that don't understand this stuff. Because there's so many people out there who don't understand and don't know how to approach things. And they're standoffish, and they won't reach out to someone, and they won't ask someone how they're feeling because they're too afraid to, or they're too uncomfortable.
And then sometimes it makes it worse.
Or they think it'll make it worse.
Oh, yeah.
Or like that, you know what I mean? It's
well,
like,
not reaching out sometimes makes it worse, is what I'm saying.
Yep, exactly. And then, because you think you're going to make it worse,
right.
And then it makes it worse by not saying anything.
Exactly.
It's just something, just coming from somebody who suffers from this. Something is better than nothing. And just be generic. How are you? Make them feel like they are cared about. That's really what it comes down to.
As the great Chuck LaFlange would say, you are loved.
Yes, you are loved. That's perfectly put.
Yeah. So on that note, I think I'll head over to summaries. How about that?
Yeah, because I can't have a better ending than that.
I don't have a whole lot tonight.
I'm impressed you have any. I'm impressed you have any. 'Cause it was just me and you.
All right. The theme of this episode is I don't understand mental health issues.
Okay.
But in fairness, I don't understand a lot of things like dieting, knowing my limits when drinking, and what flicking the bean means. Chris, you mentioned that you that you got a peg leg. You are one eye injury away from picking up a shift at Long John Silver's.
I was not expecting that. I was expecting a gay joke. I was expecting a Nick from Sandpiper joke.
Real quick, just out of curiosity, can we rename your dog to Tripwire?
Oh my god.
And lastly, so Chris's doctor said, well, you know, as long as you're not a pro athlete or a Division I athlete, look, by the end of this whole thing, when Chris can finally walk, we'll be lucky if he's not in a double D bra. And
I couldn't.
Those are my summaries.
As soon as I said what the doctor said to me, I saw you typing away. I was like, "Oh God!" The doctor couldn't. It looked like it was even hard for the doctor, like get through that sentence without laughing, like breaking a straight face. Like he looked at me and was like, you could tell he was kidding, but he didn't want to be mean. Yeah.
That one was a tough because I didn't want to sit here and be typing during this episode, but when I heard that, I just put D1 athlete. Double D bra. The rest of it was okay. I'm just going to wing it in the moment.
They just write themselves. Well, like we just said in a very long way, really appreciate these conversations we have, Scott, and we have these conversations off air. We have these important conversations texting or on the phone, and we talk about real life stuff. It's very important that we have these conversations on air too, because there's people out there who won't check in on a friend that's depressed, that won't check in on a friend that suffers from anxiety, because they don't even know that they should. So if you're listening to this and you even suspect that you have a loved one, a close friend that is suffering from some sort of mental disorder, don't tell them to get help. Don't tell them, hey, you should see a therapist. Just ask them how they're doing. And send that text every morning like Scott does. Say how just check in, how are you doing today? And they will open up to you. I promise you that. Because once they know that someone cares about them, that will mean the world to them. So please, if you could do one thing tomorrow, reach out to somebody and just check in and say, hey, how are you doing today? This is No New Friends After Dark. On behalf of Scott, absent Nick from Sandpiper Vacations, I'm Chris. We'll see you next week.
See, I don't know why I mess with 4 other people. You and I can just do this by ourselves.
This was a good episode.
We don't need anybody else. It's fine.
No, let's fire everyone.
They're all fired. That's what
we'll make so much more money. Not paying them,
right? Instead of having to split it 5 ways, we can just split it 2. That was
great. That was a really good episode.
Yeah. No New Friends After Dark has been brought to you by Sandpiper Vacations. SandpiperVacations.com. Just check out our website, NoNewFriendsPodcast.com. Become a friend with benefits. Check out our sweet merch and so much more. This has been a No New Friends Entertainment LLC production.